Every week, I sit down with my thoughts, my journal, and I try to make sense of a few things I am learning, things I am struggling with, and things I am still trying to figure out. And today, I wanted to share some of those thoughts with you. I actually looked through the list and it kind of felt like it was more on the hard side of life perspective. I actually won't say it was a bit cynical and negative, but some of these are harsh truths, and I am sharing them because maybe, like me, you are feeling stuck, or maybe you are at crossroads, or maybe you just need a different perspective to push you forward. So let's just get right into the episode. My name is Raymond, and welcome to another diary episode of the 5 to 9 Job podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am recording this episode actually from home. I only recorded the New Year resolution series from home, so I recognize the audio wasn't so good. I hope this one is better. I do have the dog making noise, so I'll try to cancel that out, but I think we'll be good. Otherwise, let's jump right in and go to point number one that I have written down. So the first thing I wanted to share was no one owes you that opportunity. This came to me when I was reflecting on a few things, but it's a tough one. No one owes you any opportunity, not your employer, not your parents, not society, and definitely not life or government. And I say this not to sound harsh, but to be real. If you want a better life, for example, you are going to have to create it. There is not going to be a savior that is coming to, help you through it all. There is not going to be a moment where everything just suddenly falls into place and there is this miracle that happens. You see, even luck favors those that are prepared, and you need to be prepared for everything that is going to come to you or has been given to you in life. And I just thought about this while I was analyzing some of my failed experiments and thinking logic, because I definitely know that there are other people out there. These are straight A students that have given everything and done everything well in class, and they have been good and they have done well by their books. They have been model children for their parents, but despite all that and despite all that goodwill that they have built up, the hard truth is still that you are going to have to fight for the opportunities that you want, the opportunities that are going to take you where you want to go, to be at the level of success that you want, because unfortunately it's just not going to be handed out to you. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start to take control of your life, and just expect it to be hard. In other words, it's just the whole premise behind this small note this week. But anyway, no one owes you that opportunity. It's not owed to you. You're going to have to work for it, and you're definitely going to go through some hard times, but you will have to be stronger than the hard times. And then number two is, don't be afraid to change your views. We live in a world where changing your mind is seen as kind of a weakness. People will call you inconsistent, they'll call you a hypocrite, they'll try to cancel you. So in the end, we have built this culture whereby people aren't okay with being wrong because of all these societal consequences, let me say. But again, when you think about it in terms of nature and growth, the nature of life is that you change, that you grow, and growth literally requires contradiction. Growth cannot be the same. Like, you can't be the same person and still grow. It's literally that the person you grow into contradicts the person you were. If you are learning, let me say, and evolving and experiencing all these new things, then your views are definitely going to change, and that's not a flaw. You see, it's actually proof that you are thinking, that you are growing, that you are independent, and you are worth trusting, So this one is just a reminder to you and myself to not let this fear of being wrong stop you from becoming right. In other words, it's okay to change your political views, it's okay to change your views on a given matter, even publicly. Let me say, I have a friend who at first used to say he was going to be single until 40. I can tell you that right now the guy is in a very healthy relationship, and that's just because he allowed his views on this whole relationship thing to change. That when this kind of person came into his life, he was able to change his mindset, and now he might actually be more happy than he would have been when he was on that whole vendetta of being single until 40. So, I mean, I just feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to stay the same, to stay consistent in how we think. You know, people think that today, if I am pro this, tomorrow I can't be against it just because I already told the world I was pro this. I definitely see how it would play out in a political sense because we definitely want leaders who, you know, know what they are talking about and know what kind of laws they are going to enforce or things they are going to back and policies that they are going to discuss and not be more whimsical or just very dynamic with their train of thought. We want consistency, yes. But at the same point, there is just too much pressure on us who are not politicians, who are just trying to live life, to not change our views. And I think it's just unnecessary pressure that I put on myself that I also think other people put on themselves. So, number two is definitely don't be afraid to change your views. It's part of the growth, it's part of how you change, how you grow, and you're definitely going to change your views as you continue through life. And then three is that every enemy has a weakness and it's usually their strength. So this one I got this while I was listening to Vosit and Maguire's VT podcast, the Ideas That Matter podcast on I think it's everywhere you can listen to it everywhere. Anyway, I think it was the episode on submarine, and he was explaining this concept. The whole thing about the submarine was that you should let people know enough to help you, but not enough for them to know exactly you are up to, what exactly you are doing. So he was using this whole concept of the submarine and everything. But just go ahead and listen to the whole episode. But the thing I want to bring out was how he said that every enemy has a weakness and it is usually their strength. He said it in the video of the podcast and it wasn't really contextual, but this is what I picked out from it and how he explained it. And just think about it. Every challenge, every opponent that you have ever faced, whether it's in a business, whether it's at work or in life, their greatest weakness is usually where they think they are strongest. And it just made sense to me, and I want to explain it to you this way. For some people, let's say, their confidence usually turns into arrogance. And so the thing they thought was their strength is now their biggest weakness. Experts turn into complacency. Just because this guy has been declared an expert, he now starts to become complacent. Companies have been or have reached this level, they start to become complacent. People who have gained power start to become blinded by it. It's the classic story of the downfall of most people, of companies, of dynasties. But the most important lesson to draw out of all this, which I think is actually more valuable, is to look at it from the viewpoint of your challenges. So if you are facing resistance, whether it is a difficult post, a competitor in business, or even your own self doubt, just go ahead and look deeper into that challenge. There is always a crack somewhere that you can find a way to beat the situation, a route out, a way to win. Not to beat the system, but to win the game. Let me say, like now, when a problem is so huge, that may actually be its weakness. That when a problem is very huge, you can break it down into small, manageable tasks and tackle it. And by the time I'm going to give the problem a persona here. So by the time the problem realizes you are done with it. In other words, you get it, something like that. It could be a person, it could be just a normal problem. But by the time it realizes that, you know what, this guy has been working and he started small and he has beaten me. It could be a small problem, and you see, sometimes these small problems are actually very hard, but the advantage actually there is that its strength of being a small problem is its greatest weakness, because if it's a small problem, then you are bigger than it. you can easily solve it if you just went in and went hard. You could easily just like get it done with. The other example that would really bring this out would be the difficult boss and everything, but I already have another section coming up on work, and I just don't want to always be ranting on this podcast about work and everything. But yeah, it's usually a very simple example actually to relate with people. Usually, work, relationships, very easy to relate like these metaphors and examples in, but it's not like I hate work. Anyway, on to four. This one is just titled Introversion versus Loneliness. And I thought about this while I was reflecting on why I am so bad at greeting and consoling others. And I have always had this excuse, especially with some of my friends that have actually helped me reinforce it and also say that it's the same with them, that all this is due to us being introverts. You get it? Like the being bad at consoling is because I'm an introvert and I'm not this feelings kind of person. What? There are all these excuses we come up with, but I'm starting to second think this. You see, a lot of people mistake introversion for loneliness. They assume that if you like being alone, it means you are isolated or antisocial. Okay, here is the difference between needing solitude, so that is introversion, and then not knowing how to connect. So that is the whole excuse in trying to say that you're introverted. Not knowing how to say thank you, how to be compassionate, how to be polite, that's not introversion. At least I don't think so. I stand to be corrected, but I really don't think that is introversion. I think it's a facade to hide our true failings. That some people think they are introverted, but in reality, they just never learned how to socialize, you know? Like they never built the skills to interact, so they withdraw. They never built the skills to console others, so they hide it in this facade of I am an introvert, I do not connect well with my feelings. I think introverts connect more with their feelings actually, you know, than extroverts do. Because you will tell an introvert something and they will overthink it and they will dwell on it. Okay, I don't want to go into that whole debate, but that's what I think. And I'm starting to see it as a problem I have. So for anyone that has seen it in themselves as well, I would recommend working on it. It's important to actually know this difference, because if you are struggling with loneliness, then you don't have to. I would advise that you don't accept it as your personality. You can train yourself out of it or even get help if it's like an actual problem. So don't brush it off as personality if you are feeling lonely or you just don't know how to connect with people. I would say don't brush it off as personality and say, oh, I'm introverted. Don't jump to that conclusion. I think it is better that you work it out. You try to put yourself in these situations that even if you're introverted, at least try to be in the middle. There are guys who find that balance between introversion and extroversion, whereby you can be an extrovert, yes, and then you get your own time to recharge and, just detox from all the human interaction like the robot that you are. Anyway, I just thought that is an important thing for us all to just keep in mind. Do not mistake introversion for not having the skills or for not being able to socialize. And I think it is very important in our age. Okay, and then going on to point five. If you can't decide, the answer is no. This one is, I think I was listening to, it was an interview with Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's about this Indian. Okay, he's an Indian entrepreneur and what. And I think the title was Naval's Key to Happiness and Success, something like that. But he was being interviewed by this other guy. Oh, now I remember. It was an episode of Founders, and they were reading. There's a book that was written about Naval Ravikant, and it was more of a collection of his tweets, and then things that were just. It wasn't an autobiography, but it was more like kind of bringing up his thoughts on happiness and success, and it was on the Founders podcast that you can also get on all your usual podcast providers. But anyway, something that he said in the podcast was that Naval's thinking, his framework was that if you can't decide, then the answer is definitely no. And I know we have all been in this situation, and it's just a simple model of making decisions without overthinking, without weighing the pros and cons, asking for opinions when deep down we already know the answer. I mean, indecision is also a decision, and sometimes the fact that you are struggling to commit means that it's not the right move. So you just need to trust that and say no, because if the answer is not yes, then it's definitely no. And if you can't decide, then the answer is no. And this actually ties back well with this whole thing I'm trying to work on, which is saying no more times and saying yes less times to like the projects I am taking on. So yeah, a good heuristic to just keep in mind. If you can't say yes, then the answer is definitely no. Okay, and then this last one is on work, and I don't know if I'm breaching my contract here, but I'll try to be as vague as I can. I have, over the months, been trying to lift my mood and perception at work to what it used to be like. So when I first started, I was just generally overly motivated. I found it very easy to stay late, to get up early, sacrifice more than I should have been, and doing all these projects in a bit to increase the value that I provided. But towards the middle, things started to go downhill, you know, with the environment, how I reacted to it wasn't okay as well. And then the frustration set in from a few things, actually, from a lot of directions, and it just became overwhelming. I I have required more discipline to get things done, these days. I have missed deadlines on several occasions, and I hate that I'm giving less than my best. So it was just this negative spiral downwards, and now I'm thinking I can't ignore the signs anymore, especially after everything I have tried. And so I'm thinking of making a change, an actually big change, and it's just because this negativity around me is not who I am. And I won't lie, it is scary. I'm grateful for where I am, but the migraines, the suffocating feeling, the stress, it's becoming, I would say, too much to ignore. I don't think I have to ignore this or have to be the one that does what I am doing. I think someone else could as easily do it and even do a better job than I am doing. And that's how I am thinking. And I'm just trying to put together a plan and gathering the courage to do what is needed. And I guess I'll be fine at the end of the day. I think I'm still young. I still have time to explore which kind of career I want to go into, like long term, and build like my whole life around. So yeah, that's been an interesting one to debate about in my head whether I should make this change or not, because I have a lot of parties that are okay, like shouldn't matter in the grander scheme of things, but whose opinions and considerations I need to take into account while I make this decision. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't just affect me; it affects a lot of people. It affects my family. It affects work. It affects wherever I am going to be or whoever I interact with. Because obviously, a lot of things will have to change from this one decision. So, wow, that is just another thought that has been on my mind a lot this week. Anyway, I guess that concludes our episode today. If something in this episode hit home for you, sit with it, reflect on it, and maybe even write it down. And actually, I want you to remember that you have more control than you think over your thoughts, how you react, and especially what you do. So definitely use that control. You have it, don't waste it, definitely use it. And I guess that is it from me for today. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet done so, please subscribe, follow, comment on all the platforms that you listen to us from. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.